I swear I didn't mean for it to feel like this. It started out stupidly ordinary. I was just dropping by to return a book I'd borrowed from my friend. His mom answered the door. She stood there with a screwdriver still in her hand, hair pulled back in a messy knot, wearing jeans that had flecks of white paint on the thigh. Behind her, a lamp leaned awkwardly on the table, the shade crooked like it had survived a fight. "Perfect timing," she said, half laughing, half sighing. "The bulb won't stay in. I think I'm losing the battle." I stepped inside, the smell of fresh coffee lingering in the hallway, and suddenly the air between us felt too quiet. "Want me to try?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just gave me a look that lasted a second too long before she passed me the bulb. I climbed onto the chair while she steadied it with one hand. The warmth of her palm brushed the back of my calf, just for balance, but it sent a ripple straight through me. "You're taller," she murmured, eyes tilted upward. "Makes it easier for you." The bulb clicked into place. The light flared back to life, flooding the room, but I couldn't look away from her face. Lines at the corners of her eyes, tired but soft, softer than I remembered. She stepped back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, as if she realized she'd been standing too close. "Thanks," she said, voice lower now. "I owe you." "You don't," I replied quickly, maybe too quickly. My throat felt dry. It was nothing, but it wasn't nothing, because as I stepped down, my arm brushed hers. A simple, accidental touch, except neither of us moved away. We just froze. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavier than that, like the room was listening. She cleared her throat, tried to smile. "He's not home right now," she said, meaning her son, my friend. "You'll probably see him tomorrow, right?" I nodded, though I couldn't remember what tomorrow even was supposed to look like. I should have left then. That would have been the normal thing, the easy thing. But my feet stayed planted, and I found myself looking at the way her hands tightened around the screwdriver, knuckles pale, as though she was gripping something stronger inside herself. Finally, she set it down. Her voice dropped so low I almost thought I'd imagined it. "We can keep this just ours, right?" Her words weren't loud. They weren't even clear at first. But the way her eyes held mine, wide, uncertain, searching, made my pulse kick like it was trying to run ahead of me. I didn't know if she meant the lamp, the moment, or something bigger she wasn't ready to say out loud. All I knew was that her breath lingered in the space between us, and for the first time, I couldn't look away. I should have laughed it off, pretended I hadn't heard her whisper, or just walked out before either of us said something we couldn't take back. But I didn't. I stood there like an idiot, trying not to show how fast my chest was rising and falling. She broke the silence first. "It's complicated," she said, shaking her head, like she was scolding herself for even letting those words slip. She picked up the crooked lamp and adjusted it again, though it didn't need adjusting anymore. Complicated. That word hung between us like static. I watched her fingers linger on the edge of the lampshade. She wasn't wearing a ring. I already knew that, but somehow noticing it again made the air tighter. Her voice softened, almost tired. "It's been a long year. I don't usually let anyone see me like this. Not even—" She cut herself off. "Not even who? Her ex? A man who'd left?" I didn't ask, but the thought made my stomach twist. I sat down without asking, just to give myself something to do. My hand brushed against a magazine on the coffee table. It was open to an article about starting over at 40. "You read this?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter than I meant. She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Sometimes, when I'm not busy pretending I don't need advice." She sat across from me, resting her elbows on her knees. For a second, she looked less like someone's mom and more like someone real, someone who wasn't untouchable. I noticed everything. The way she tapped her finger absent-mindedly against her coffee mug, the faint paint smudge still on her arm, the uneven rhythm of her breathing when she finally let herself relax. And I hated that I noticed it, hated that I couldn't stop. "She wouldn't understand," she said suddenly, then caught herself, eyes flashing to mine. "Sorry. I shouldn't have said that." I wanted to ask who she meant. I wanted to tell her I wouldn't repeat a word. But instead, I just nodded, afraid if I opened my mouth I'd say something worse. The clock ticked loud on the wall. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. She glanced at it, then back at me. "You don't have to rush off, do you?" Her voice was too casual, too practiced, as if she'd rehearsed the line in her head before saying it. I swallowed hard. "No, I don't." And then she did it, the thing I'll never forget. She reached across the table, just lightly, her fingertips brushing my arm. Not enough to be called a touch, but enough that I felt it long after her hand had retreated. I almost said something then, something reckless, something I wouldn't be able to take back. The words pressed against my tongue, begging to escape. But before I could, she leaned back, watching me carefully. Waiting. I don't know how long we sat like that. The lamp humming above us, the coffee cooling untouched. Every second stretched thin, like one wrong move would snap it. I should have said something safe, something that would put space back between us. Instead, what came out was too close to the truth. "You don't seem like you should be alone right now." Her eyes flicked up at me, sharp at first, then softening in a way that made my stomach clench. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "People assume I'm fine." Her voice cracked on fine, just barely, but I heard it. Before I knew it, I leaned forward, elbows resting on my knees, as if being closer might let me understand the heaviness in her tone. My knee brushed against hers. She didn't move it away. That tiny contact shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. My skin buzzed like it had memorized her. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to add something. But then, a sharp knock at the front door. Both of us flinched. She stood quickly, smoothing her jeans as if she'd been caught in something wrong. I stayed frozen, pulse hammering, every muscle ready to snap back into normal. She peeked through the side window, then exhaled. "Just the delivery guy." She didn't open the door. She just waited until the footsteps faded and the engine started outside. When she sat back down, she let out a shaky laugh. "See? I'm already jumpy. Like I've got something to hide." Her words landed heavier than she meant them to. "You don't," I said too fast. Then quieter. "Not with me." Her gaze lingered, searching my face like she was weighing whether to believe me. The silence that followed was thicker than before. No hum of interruption, no excuse to move. I tried to lean back, to create distance, but my body betrayed me. My hand slid across the table unconsciously, stopping just short of hers. She noticed. Of course she did. Her breath hitched, the faintest sound, and I swear I felt the room tilt toward her. "You shouldn't," she whispered. But the words didn't carry conviction. They sounded more like a warning she wished she didn't have to give. I almost pulled back. Almost. But then she shifted, her fingertips ghosting against the edge of my wrist. Not quite a touch. Not quite an accident either. It was enough to make me forget where I was, who I was supposed to be. For one suspended moment, it felt like nothing else existed but the tiny sliver of space left between us. And the unspoken question burned in my chest, louder than anything either of us dared say. Were we about to cross it? Her hand lingered too close to mine, the ghost of her touch still tingling on my skin. I wanted to grab it, to hold it, but even the thought made my throat tighten. I leaned back, trying to breathe, but the words came out before I could stop them. "You have no idea how hard it is not to." I caught myself, jaw clenching. Her eyes sharpened instantly. "Not to what?" The question cut through me. She deserved an answer, but giving it meant stepping over a line I couldn't step back from. My silence stretched. She looked away first, fingers tightening around her mug. "You're too young to get tangled up in this," she said softly, as if she were convincing herself. "And I'm old enough to know better. That doesn't make it easier." I shot back, my voice low, trembling at the edges. Her head snapped toward me, eyes locking on mine. For the first time, she wasn't hiding. I saw it, the loneliness, the ache, the fear of being seen too clearly. "You don't know what you're asking for," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "Then tell me, because all I know is I can't stop noticing you, thinking about you, even when I try." The words landed between us like a crack of thunder. I said too much, more than I could take back, but I didn't regret it. She pressed a hand to her forehead, exhaling sharp. "God." A laugh slipped out, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. "Do you hear yourself? This is insane." I almost laughed too, because she was right. It was insane. But the way her voice shook betrayed her. She wasn't just dismissing me. She was trying to protect something fragile inside herself. "Maybe," I said, leaning forward, "but you don't pull away." Her eyes widened, then narrowed, like she hated how true that was. The room was unbearably still. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound. I felt heat climbing the back of my neck, every muscle taut, waiting for her to say something that would either shatter me or pull me closer. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, "If I let this happen, I don't come back from it." The words weren't loud. They weren't even meant for me, maybe, but I heard them, and they lodged deep. I opened my mouth to tell her I didn't care, that I'd already gone too far, but the words stuck. We just sat there, eyes locked, breath shallow, caught in a silence so heavy it felt like the whole house was holding it. And then she asked, voice trembling, eyes never leaving mine, "Do you really want this? Or are you just saying it because you can?" Her question still echoed in my chest. "Do you really want this? Or are you just saying it because you can?" I didn't answer right away. Maybe I couldn't. My mouth opened, closed again. She waited, her expression tight, unreadable. And then, with a sharp inhale, she stood. "I shouldn't have said that," she muttered, almost to herself. "Forget it." But I couldn't forget it. Not when she had finally let me see the weight behind her eyes. "I meant it," I said quickly, standing too. "Every word. I'm not playing with you." She froze. Then she laughed. But it wasn't the kind of laugh that lightens a room. It was bitter, almost broken. "Funny," she whispered, her hand gripping the back of the chair for balance. "That's exactly what he said." I blinked. "Who?" She looked at me then, really looked, and the truth hit like a punch. "My ex. He was younger too. He said all the right things, made me believe, and then left. Left me picking up the pieces. You think I don't hear the echo?" The words carved into me, sharp and raw. I wanted to protest, to tell her I wasn't him, that she wasn't just some passing crush to me. But she'd already turned away, arms crossed over her chest like a shield. For the first time since this started, I felt powerless. Like I'd stepped into a story I hadn't been invited to finish. The silence pressed in hard until my phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a text from her son. "My friend. You at my place? Mom said you dropped by." She saw the name flash. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her hand trembled just slightly before she snatched the phone, placed it face down on the table. "You should go," she said flatly, "before this gets worse." The dismissal stung, but I couldn't move. Not yet. My chest tightened with all the things I couldn't say. That I wasn't him, that she mattered, that this already was worse because I cared. "Is that what you really want?" I asked, voice low. She didn't answer. Her eyes glistened, just faintly, before she turned her face away. The seconds stretched, unbearable. Then I did the only thing I could. I stepped back, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. As my hand touched the knob, her voice broke the silence. "Don't make me believe you," she whispered. Not loud enough to stop me, but enough to keep me from breathing. I stood there, caught between leaving and turning back. The weight of her past pressed against the pull of what I wanted now. And for the first time, I didn't know which one would win. For days, I avoided her house, avoided the street altogether. I told myself it was better, that I was sparing her, sparing myself. But every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her. Every time I passed her son in the hallway, I caught myself searching for some trace of her in his words. It was pointless. She was everywhere anyway. In the smell of fresh paint when I walked past the hardware store. In the way I caught myself looking at my phone at midnight, thumb hovering over her name I'd never actually saved. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't planned. I was cutting through the back alley near the cafe, and she was there, leaning against her car, fumbling with the trunk latch. She looked up, startled, then guilty, as if caught in the act of just existing. Neither of us moved at first. Then she exhaled sharply. "You weren't supposed to be here." "I know," I said, "but I am." Her hand slipped from the latch, falling uselessly to her side. "Why do you keep pushing? Haven't I made it clear?" "You've made it confusing," I said, stepping closer. My voice was steadier than I felt. "You say I should go, but you whisper things that make me stay. You tell me not to believe you, but you look at me like you already do." Her eyes closed for a moment, as if bracing against something heavy. When she opened them again, they shone with something rawer than denial. "You don't understand," she said. If I let you, it's not just about us. It's about what it says about me. About everything I swore I wouldn't repeat." "Then don't repeat it," I said quietly. "Make it different this time." The words hung there. Too simple, maybe, but they were all I had. She shook her head, tears pooling but not falling. "You're too young to carry someone else's damage." "Then don't make me carry it," I said. My chest ached with the force of it. "Just let me choose you. Isn't that enough?" For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sounds of the street drifted in. A car passing, a dog barking in the distance. Ordinary life moving on without us. Then, finally, she whispered, "You don't know how much I want to believe you." And before I could lose the courage, I closed the space between us. My hand found hers, tentative, almost asking permission. She didn't pull away. The silence was unbearable and beautiful all at once. She let out a shaky breath, then pressed her forehead lightly against mine, eyes closed. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. But it was an answer. And for the first time I knew, whatever came after, neither of us could pretend anymore. When it finally happened, it didn't feel like fireworks. Felt quiet, heavy, like something that had been waiting under the surface for far too long. After that night by her car, we stopped pretending. The long pauses, the accidental touches, the whispered almost confessions. They'd all been building to this. It didn't mean it was easy. She pulled away more than once, retreating into herself, only to find me still there. I stumbled too, said the wrong thing, pushed when I should have waited. But each time, instead of breaking, we bent. And maybe that's what made it real. She told me about the man before me, the younger one who left her with cracks she thought would never heal. I told her about the years I'd spent wanting more than surface-level connections, about how empty it felt being noticed by everyone but seen by no one. Somewhere in the mess of those conversations, the guilt in her eyes softened. The longing in mine steadied. We met in the middle. She stopped saying, "This is wrong." I stopped saying, "I don't care." Instead, we started asking, what if it's ours? The house that once felt tense with silence grew different too. Coffee cups left out after long talks. Lamps that didn't flicker anymore. Small routines that stitched themselves into something bigger. I noticed the little things. How she laughed easier now. How she didn't bother hiding her tired mornings. She noticed me too, not just as her son's friend, but as someone who stayed when she expected me to leave. It wasn't a fairy tale. People would talk if they knew, maybe judge. There were days when guilt threatened to crawl back in, or when I caught her staring out the window, lost in thought. But then she'd look at me, really look, and it was enough, because we'd already crossed the line, and neither of us wanted to go back. I guess that's the truth of it. Love doesn't always arrive the way people expect. Sometimes it shows up when it shouldn't, between people who shouldn't have found each other, and yet, somehow they do. If you're waiting for me to say I regret it, I don't. Not for a second. When she leaned in, finally, and her lips found mine, gentle, trembling, certain. I knew this wasn't about replacing what she lost or proving something about myself. It was about us, and how, against all the reasons not to, we chose it anyway. And that choice, imperfect, flawed, real, is what made it ours.